make it make sense. At least that's what I'm gonna try to do. Hello, sweeties. Hola, welcome to my channel. I go by Mercedes Lens. We're here. We discuss and analyze many different topics. You get a sneak peek through my lens on said topics. We have fun here. So if you're down for that, sit back, relax, grab your ice cream. I have mine. And let's get into this video. So today's episode, it's a good one, y'all. It's such a good one. Today we're going to be talking about Ebony Hicks and Jonathan Farnum. They're both from Cedar Knolls, New Jersey. They've been together for 5 years. Ebony is 24, hospital food service rep, and Jonathan is 23, discount store stock clerk. And they have no kids together. And child, when I tell you we are in for a doozy, we are in for a doozy. A few things I want to point out. At the very beginning, there were some things that happened immediately that put me on game to how this episode was going to be.
Bear with me for a second. Let me put y'all on game.
First things first, like I'm gonna tell y'all, always look at the audience. In every judge show you come across, divorce court, Judge Mathis, Judge Judy, Judge Maybelline, all of them, always look at the audience, okay? Because you will always find that one that's gonna give you life. And baby, we got one of those in this episode. But always look at the audience for their reactions. Hilarious. So in this case, there is one guy, we're gonna call him our golden boy, because he was serving. I think I've seen him in a few other episodes before, so he may be a regular, and with I would probably be there every day too. But anyway, the show starts with an opening monologue. And so they start off with Ebony, and the first thing out of her mouth as to why they're there, and she says to put it into Jonathan's non-manly behavior.
What do you mean by that?
Whatever the hell that means. Ironically enough, that is the title of this episode. But I'm gonna let him cook before I make my assessment, okay? But immediately after she says she's there to put it into his non-manly behavior, it immediately cuts to him saying that Ebony tells him that he's too sensitive and blah blah blah. And look, don't get me wrong, it's okay to be sensitive. I'm not disputing that. Being sensitive is not for everybody, so I also understand that too. I personally am a sensitive person, so I can understand and take offense to when somebody says they're too sensitive. I get that. However, there has to be a balance between overly sensitive and not sensitive at all.
Let's move on.
Last thing, kind of a precursor for this entire episode. It's a lot going on, okay? The relationship, I won't say it's chaotic. They're not the most chaotic couple I've ever seen. However, it is and kind of all over the place, mainly because of one person over the other. It's kind of all over the place with their relationship, and the judge and I do our best to try to make sense of it all. But honey, what I see is two people in a relationship. One's a pusher and one's a pushover. We're gonna see if my theory holds up. So let's get into it. We begin with Ebony. So Ebony says that throughout the relationship, they seem to have problem after problem. They had a really good first year, but after the first year, she cheated on him, and it's been downhill since. And side note, remember when I said always look at the audience? Yeah, watch this.
But ever since I cheated on him, we just really haven't been the same. We just really haven't been the same. We just really haven't been the same.
Disappointed!
Pure gold. Ebony blames her cheating on John because he takes part of substances that are legal in Colorado.
If you know, you know.
And so she has a problem with that. Now,
Let me break it down like a fraction.
don't get me wrong, many people don't like that. Fair. That is not for everybody. Everybody doesn't want to be in a relationship with someone that does partake in that, right? And that's their prerogative. Some people don't mind it, some people do. If you're one of those people that do mind it, you have a couple options, right?
Numero uno.
That's when you go to your partner, you talk about it, right? Especially if it's becoming an issue, you talk about it and try to come to some type of compromise. If there are no compromise, then you have a couple options, right? Put up or shut up. Put up with it or don't. But out of all those choices that you have, when did cheating become one of those options? How do we jump from put up with it or cheat? Like, the man thing. Anyway, when she said that, I was taken aback. Didn't make sense. And the judge asked John if, that was an accurate account Now, another side note, I'm not gonna lie. The moment that he started talking, immediately I knew that he partakes in the legal substance that is in Colorado. It's ironic because Ebony said that they started off their relationship primarily long distance, and so they were on the phone a lot. They move on to Ebony feeling like John doesn't protect her like she feels like she should be protected by him. Judge asks her to elaborate on that. So Ebony feels like generally he's not man enough. And maybe someone in the audience was like, ooh.
Genuinely, he's not man enough. I don't feel like I don't feel like
And guess who did? Guess who made that noise?
Man enough. I don't feel like I don't feel like
You guessed it. You was right.
You guessed it, Golden Boy or MVP of the episode. Ebony elaborates with an example of John's ex-roommate. And so apparently John and his ex-roommate, they were living together. They had some conflict. However, they used to be friends. Eventually it got to the point where they separated. John had his own place and the ex-roommate had came over intoxicated. Already off rip, a sane person would know, let me not entice the situation even more. Ebony gonna say John was acting scary, going to the door with, you know, nunchucks in his hand. And Ebony wanted John to go out and interact with him, this roommate, while he was intoxicated.
Why would you want that to happen?
All of it didn't make sense. Her reasoning for why she wanted John to engage with this person, knowing the bad history between them, something wasn't connected. It didn't make sense. Her reasoning didn't make sense. And so John elaborates a little further. And so he explains that, you know, given the past of him and that roommate, his first thought was to go out there because they've had blows before. However, he was like, why would I do that? You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense for me to go out there and take Ebony's advice and interact with this guy who's clearly intoxicated that can go left. So he was like, well, let me call the police and try to de-escalate it that way. That makes perfect sense. Now, I get some people don't want the police involved. I understand. And, you know, sometimes when somebody's intoxicated, you can kind of de-escalate the situation to where they just go to sleep and everything's fine. It don't even have to get to the police being called or whatever, right? However, that is not always the case. And if you got a bad history with this person, if you know this person is like intoxicated and ready to turn up on some turn up type time, on some
I heard you was looking for me.
Here I go.
you probably don't want to interact with them because things can go super left. That person can get hurt, you can get hurt. Everything and anything wrong can happen. Don't put your partner in predicaments where it's unsafe. So don't ever make a situation unsafe for your partner. Judge pretty much agreed with all the sentiments that I pretty much said. And it's better to not entice an intoxicated person because things can go left real quick. Ebony couldn't explain why she wanted John to go out there. It just didn't make sense. Make it make sense. And side note, at this point, I'm already picking up some more things about Ebony. When Judge kind of gets on her, you know, during that situation or whatever, at this point in the episode, I noticed her posture changed. It turned from relaxed and open to defensive. I just found that quite interesting, but we'll move on. So then they move on to Ebony thinking that John is a crybaby. So she gives an example of when he had called her out her name. She asked him to leave and he wouldn't go. She admitted that like throughout the course of their on and off relationship, she called the police on John like 3 times. So this time where she threatened to call the police and he was like,
I ain't scared no popo. Call the popo, ho. Call the popo, ho.
he said,
I don't give up.
and so she called the police on him because she felt like he was getting really emotional and she felt threatened. So in that situation, being emotional doesn't always mean you cry all the time. Being extra emotional can also mean anger. Being sensitive can also mean anger. I'm mad, you hurt my feelings, so I'm gonna choose violence.
My temperament bipolar, I choose violence.
That's also a way of being sensitive or a way of being emotional. A lot of people forget that anger is also an emotion, but all of it is still considered emotional. It's not always the correct response to something. And so they moved on to another scenario where she explained when they weren't together, they were still in the process of trying to get back together, right? John had admitted to Ebony that he had messed with this girl while they were not together. This is all in the process of them talking about getting together, but still are not together. And so that hurt feelings. But irregardless, it was around her birthday time, so she had a birthday party. She invited her friends. Among her friends, John was there as well. And among her friends, one of her male friends was there. She says that John had like broken into the bedroom or something like that and saw that she was chilling in the bed and one of her male friends was in the bed, and it went downhill from there. The way she framed it, she made it seem like she didn't know why he flipped out after he saw her and her friend, her male friend, in the bed together.
Right.
Girl, you know why. Judge was like, why were y'all in the bed together? She was like,
Oh, we're just hanging out.
Boy, if you don't get
girl, be for real. Like, huh? And she even like kind of laughed or whatever. Like, you don't even believe that. Like, please, come on. So then Jonathan gives his version of that occasion, and he added some details that she didn't say, and how her and that male friend at the time, that same day during her party, was like flirting with each other. Technically, it wasn't inappropriate because they were not together at the time, but if y'all are in talks of being together, you see him there, you got your male friend there, and I call back to her comment of saying she was hurt by the fact that John told her that he had messed with some girl when they weren't together. It hurt her feelings. So she probably had that on her mind. A part of me feels like she was being a little bit petty, but again, him flipping out like that, I'm not going to say it wasn't warranted, because some could argue that it could have been they're emotionally involved even though they're not together, but the key thing was
They were not together.
but then they were in the talks of getting back together. So it's a hot mess. Okay, and so he flipped out, broke some stuff. It is just some foolishness. That wasn't the right way to react. You can tell Judge was really bothered by something. I'm gonna dive into that for a little bit. Judge normally would have called out breaking stuff like that is not the answer. You're breaking stuff that you're gonna have to pay for anyway. You know, it doesn't make sense. Or because you're angry. Like, keep your emotions in check. Normally, Judge would call that out, but you can tell something else was bothering her. So she took a minute to go into that a little bit. Judge calls out the fact that she notices that every time they break up, immediately Ebony is underneath another guy.
and
Not in a relation type of way, not in an intimate type of way, but in terms of having someone around. She picks up on that, and John explains the cycle of them breaking up and her immediately linking up with another dude, then them getting back together, and then the cycle repeats itself. And child, they broke up like 20 times.
huh?
Yes, 20 times, 15-20 times. That's horrible for them to be together for only 5 years and broken up like that many times. Like,
What the motherfuck are you doing that for? That's embarrassing.
You're embarrassing.
Okay, so
that's too many times. Judge further elaborates on Ebony's behavior, and she was like, that signals to her that Ebony can't be alone. It's a very accurate assessment. Why is it you just can't be by yourself? She asks Ebony why does she feel the need to immediately go run to somebody after John and her break up, and Ebony disagrees with that narrative. Of course she is, because from what I've seen so far, she's not going to admit to that narrative because she doesn't believe it to be true. To her, she feels like every time that they break up, she takes it as they are really done. She takes it seriously, and so she feels like she needs to try to move on immediately emotionally. Make it make sense. For me, I'm listening to her reasonings and her logic at 24. Low key, I'm not gonna lie, it is kind of shocking to me. I couldn't be too shocked because yes, she is still 24, and yes, you're still kind of young in the mind. However, at 24, you should
Get a clue, mama.
things are different nowadays, but this is also recorded like years ago. I don't know. In my mind, by 24, a light bulb is kind of sparking a little. You should have somewhat of a clue. Nonetheless, so Judge move on to John's issues with money. He does have issue with money though, that he really needs to get that check. Ebony says that John has been evicted many times. You know, he's literally have gone like 5 months without paying rent.
I beg your pardon?
Absolutely not a good thing. Money problems like that, and he admits that he has a lot going on. People asking for money, so money are going every which way, and he's not managing it correctly. And first and foremost, not taking care of himself first before he distributes to everybody else. That's an issue. So that's something that definitely can be addressed. Judge doesn't really spend too much time on that because she really tries to understand Ebony's thinking a little more. She really tries to tap into it because you could just tell it's bothering Judge. None of what Ebony Ebony is saying is making sense. It's something about Ebony that ain't clicking. She points out John's irresponsible behavior when it comes to money, and she understands that is a problem, but it doesn't directly affect her at that point because they don't live together. You know, it doesn't really affect her only except Ebony's considering marrying him. So Judge breaks it down and says that they've broken up many times, and when they do, her first thought is to move on emotionally quickly, but it never happens. Well, they do break up, but they come right back together. It's been done over 15 times, so she ain't that naive to think that they're not gonna get back together. And she calls him a crybaby. However, she wants him to go up and fight for her in situations that doesn't need to be fought. It ain't making sense to me, and it's definitely not making sense to the judge. So the judge says that there's something in Ebony that's hollow. She asks Ebony if she's afraid or if she's insecure or something like that because she's fighting to keep a relationship that doesn't satisfy her like at all. So she seems upset when Judge puts up the mirror of the conflicting thoughts that Ebony has that doesn't make sense. And so she asks Ebony what's going on with her. Ebony says that she wants John to show her that they can live a happy life together, that they can handle their responsibilities like adults. Ebony doesn't feel like John is ready or mature enough. And boy, what a thing to say. You saying he's not mature, but girl, are you? And so the judge asked her the $1 million question of,
Ebony, do you feel like you're mature enough to be married?
and the $1 million answer should have been no. But of course, Ebony doesn't feel that way. And she says, being with him, yes.
Get a clue, mama.
So you're measuring your maturity based off his maturity when y'all are together? Boy, what a bar. Don't get me wrong. Ebony wasn't wrong. She was very much right when she said he wasn't mature enough. Because in that same breath, Judge looked at her like,
What the is this?
well, she looked at her like she was crazy. And then she moved on to John, was like, basically asked him the same question. Like, do you see what I see, basically? Do you see the insecurity? His answer, in so many words, didn't make no sense either. He wasn't able to dive any deeper into what the judge said at all. His response was surface level. He couldn't see what the judge saw. He wasn't capable of going deeper as well. So that let me know a lot. Like I said, only 23 and 24, so I can't expect too much. Nonetheless, the judge moves on to talk about compatibility tests that she gives, and she mentions that based on their compatibility test and talking to them in person, she could definitely see what the problem is. She ends the episode with her word, honey, a word. She starts off by explaining why she gives a compatibility test and why she usually does it on younger couples that say they're having issues. Personally, she feels like 23 and 24 is for people to date and figure out what they like and what they don't like. She doesn't feel like that is the time to try to settle down. I can't say I disagree. I've seen a lot of relationships that were formed, particularly back in high school, got married and didn't make it too much longer after graduation. Personally, I can understand where she's coming from. To each his own, right? She says to Ebony that to maintain a relationship with someone that she finds to be inadequate says something. Although Judge likes John, she says she likes John. She's not dating John, so she can't say the ins and outs of what's going on with him if he's all these things that Ebony is saying. However, the person that he showed up to court as, she likes that. The judge continues to say that in her test, she usually asks both parties of the couple list 5 things wrong with themselves and 5 things wrong with their partners. Ebony, however, lists way more than 5 for both categories. So for him, she says what's wrong with him is the lying, the substance usage, selfish, controlling, no self-control, people pleaser, the workaholic, no work ethic, very emotional, not goal-oriented, not driven, crumbles under pressure. And for herself, judgmental, critical, not emotionally understanding, antisocial, too nice. Her past influences her present decisions. She flirts a lot sometimes. She might expect too much. She procrastinates.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Baby, if that wasn't all of a mouthful of contradiction vomit, directly behind one another were contradictions. Like when she was talking about him, he's a workaholic, but has no work ethic. For herself, too nice, but you're critical and judgmental. She flirts a lot sometimes. Who are you?
Let me break it down like a fraction.
You can tell a lot by a question and the answer to a question. The answer that she gave let me know that she's not really a good communicator. Everyone is not a good communicator. However, it is something that is very important. It's important to be a good communicator, especially if you're in a relationship and especially if you're talking about marriage. It's important to try to work on yourself to get your thoughts out clearly, because if you're just talking and not really taking the time to really think before you speak,
It only makes you look foolish.
one of the worst things is not being aware of yourself. Even worse, if you are aware of yourself and you do nothing about it. To me, that tells me she's not the best communicator, which is okay at 24. So it is important to do the work to try to become an effective communicator, especially when it comes to your relationship. And another thing it let me know is she can't take accountability for her actions. When she says things like she flirts a lot sometimes,
Bombastic side eye.
first of all, contradiction. She might expect too much. She doesn't completely take accountability. She's aware of her flaws, but doesn't fully accept them. However, she calls out John's flaws with the confidence of a fierce lion. She will call it out straight, no hesitation, no might, no maybes, no questions, none of that. She says it out straight of all of his flaws and things that she don't like about him. It lets me know that she's not completely unaware of herself. She's aware, she just refuses to accept that part of herself or accept it to be a flaw. Judge totally believes that Ebony overall is dissatisfied. Valid. She doesn't know what she's even dissatisfied about. Valid. She doesn't know what she's dissatisfied about, so she picks on the nearest person, which is John, and says that she is dissatisfied with him. And so Judge continues and says that she thinks that Ebony is not at peace with herself. She's trying to fill a need that she doesn't even know what she needs to fill it. Ebony thinks that it's John, but she's not even satisfied with what he brings to the table. But she can't get up from the table because she doesn't even know where to go.
She's got a point.
Hey, she was spot on. Like, Judge admits she doesn't know how to answer Ebony's question of keeping them together because Ebony doesn't know how to help Ebony. Usually she can gauge from a person and they can speak in a way where Judge like, okay, I get what you mean. And sometimes to me, I'm like, how did she get that? But she be spot on. That's why she's an expert, right? But in this case, the way Ebony talks in so much contradiction is really hard to really know and understand what Ebony needs, because Ebony doesn't even know what she needs. Ebony hasn't done enough work on herself yet to be aware of herself and requests what she needs in a relationship. Judge says that everyone she meets is going to be inadequate somewhere in some department. You know, it's very rarely that you find somebody with a total package off rip at such a young age of 23, 24. Until she is centered in who she is and knows herself well enough, she'll never find somebody that'll satisfy her. Judge then looks to John and says that she feels like he's a good guy, but he needs to get off the hamster wheel. Don't participate in the cycle, especially if the wheel is not going to get him anywhere. He has the right to make the decision to step off of the wheel and do what he needs to do for himself. And at the end, he made it clear, like, no matter what, he still wants to go through whatever she's going through with her. You could just tell the dynamic here. He just wants to be there for her, and she's steady trying to push him away. I did find an update, and I did find that they did get married. I'm not clear if she's a mother yet. From what I did kind of gather from the little information that I got this day, I believe they are still married. Ebony, she journals, and you see like she has like a whole bunch of planners. She talks about planners all the time. The way she speaks, it sounds like she's more spiritual now. Her journaling, writing in her planner, like a therapeutic and healing thing for her, which I love that for her. She seems more grounded and determined to keep herself accountable and improve herself every day. She's really focused on keeping herself accountable. You know, you can tell she's been through a lot and she's really trying to do the work on herself, and I have nothing but respect for that. So overall, what you can take from this episode is this: you have to look at yourself. Sometimes you are the toxic person. Sometimes you are the mean one. Sometimes you're looking to push away. Sometimes you need to recognize that you are
The motherfucking problem.
Face the music. Don't run from it. Own it. Check it. Do better. Be better. And with that, best of luck to them both. This was an absolutely fun episode. I really like this one. I am glad that they decided to stick it out and get married. I hope that they are living their best lives. Best of wishes to them. Thank you so much for watching. For those of you that are into divorce court, thank you for rocking with me. For those of you that are looking for my Hell's Kitchen content, I'm not sure if you're aware, it's been a lot going on with that behind the scenes, but I'm not giving up on it. It is going to come back once I figure out what's going on. I also have other things in the works. We're just going to have a good time here. I appreciate you watching. Thank you for sticking it out with me. I do hope you come back. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, your week, your night, whenever you're watching this. I will try to do the same. Until next time, guys. Bye.